I'm Amber Wilson, 32, and I was always the responsible one in my family. For years, I carried the weight of my parents' financial burdens on my shoulders. As a successful financial advisor at Mercer and Associates, I paid their mortgage, utilities, and more without complaint. That changed during one family dinner when I overheard something that shattered my world. My father's words still echo in my mind. "She's just a wallet to us at this point, not really family." That night, I discovered the painful truth about my place in their lives. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're from, hit subscribe, and stick around to see how I finally broke free from financial exploitation disguised as family obligation. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Philadelphia, my childhood looked normal from the outside. Our two-story colonial with blue shutters fit right in with the other family homes on Maple Street. But behind our front door, financial chaos reigned due to my parents' irresponsible choices. My father, Robert Wilson, never held a job longer than 18 months. He was charming and articulate with an impressive resume that helped him land positions quickly. Yet, his combative personality inevitably led to conflicts with management. "They just don't appreciate real talent," he'd declare after each dismissal, refusing to acknowledge his role in these departures. Between jobs, he'd spend days watching television while bills piled up on the kitchen counter. My mother, Diana, worked part-time at a local boutique, though her hours remained conveniently flexible. She scheduled shifts around her social activities, hair appointments, and shopping excursions. The meager income she brought home hardly justified the amount she spent on clothing and home decor. "Appearances matter, Amber," she'd remind me whenever I questioned a new purchase. As the eldest child, responsibility fell on my shoulders early. By age 10, I was preparing meals, helping my younger siblings with homework, and learning to stretch groceries when money ran short. My brother Ethan, 3 years younger, retreated into video games to escape the tension. My sister Madison, the baby at 5 years, my junior, became expert at using her cuteness to avoid responsibility. The financial contradictions in our household confused and frustrated me. While my parents claimed poverty when it came to school supplies or my extracurricular activities, they somehow found money for luxury items. I remember one particular incident when I was 12. My request for $30 for a school field trip was denied because we just can't afford extras right now. The next day, my mother came home with a $400 designer handbag. When I pointed out the inconsistency, I was lectured about adult priorities and sent to my room for being disrespectful. By 15, I secured my first job stocking shelves at the local grocery store. Though the hours were tough alongside schoolwork, I felt a sense of control over my life for the first time. My first paycheck went toward buying my own school supplies and a pair of sneakers without holes. I expected praise for my initiative, but instead, my father casually asked if I could contribute to the family expenses since I was making money now. Before I knew it, half my earnings were being absorbed into the family budget. Throughout high school, I maintained straight A's despite working 20 hours weekly. College applications became my escape route, with scholarships my ticket to freedom. When acceptance letters arrived with financial aid packages, my parents' reaction wasn't pride but concern about losing my contribution to household expenses. "Family takes care of family," my mother reminded me during a tense dinner discussion about my college plans. "You can't just abandon your responsibilities here." I compromised by choosing State University just 30 minutes from home instead of my dream school across the country. The decision allowed me to live on campus while remaining close enough to help at home when needed. The frequency of those needs proved telling. Nearly every weekend brought urgent calls about overdue electric bills, car repairs, or empty refrigerators. College became a blur of classes, study sessions, and multiple part-time jobs. While my roommates attended football games and joined clubs, I worked at the campus bookstore, delivered food on weekends, and tutored other students between classes. Every month, despite my own struggling bank account, I sent money home after emotional phone calls from my mother about choosing between medicine and groceries. During my junior year finance class, I recognized the patterns in my family for what they were. Professor Martinez discussed financial abuse and dependency cycles, using examples that hit uncomfortably close to home. I approached him after class, and his kind but firm assessment stayed with me. Supporting family is admirable, but enabling harmful behaviors isn't helping anyone, including them. Despite this realization, obligation and guilt kept me tethered to my parents' financial needs. When I graduated with honors and secured a position at a respected financial firm, my first thought wasn't celebration but relief that I could better support my family. The irony wasn't lost on me. I excelled at managing others' money while allowing my own to be mismanaged by the people who should have taught me financial responsibility. My parents attended my graduation ceremony, beaming with pride as they introduced themselves to my professors and classmates. "We always knew she was special," my father said, repeatedly, arm around my shoulders. That night, they suggested we celebrate at an expensive restaurant, where I paid the bill, of course. It was the beginning of a pattern that would continue for years. My career at Mercer and Associates began with promise and quickly exceeded expectations. Starting as a junior financial advisor, I approached each client relationship with the same meticulous attention to detail that had carried me through college. Within 18 months, I'd built a substantial client portfolio and received my first promotion. Senior partners noticed my ability to explain complex investment strategies in accessible terms, and my client retention rate topped the department. At 24, I moved into my own apartment, a modest one-bedroom in a safe neighborhood with reasonable rent. After years of shared dorm rooms and cramped student housing, having my own space felt luxurious. I carefully furnished it piece by piece, taking pride in creating a peaceful environment that was entirely mine. For the first time, I controlled my surroundings and finances without interference. This independence was short-lived. 5 years ago, during a routine Sunday call, my mother's voice carried an unusual edge of panic. The bank called about foreclosure proceedings, she explained between sobs. "They're saying we could lose the house in 60 days. Investigation revealed my parents were 9 months behind on mortgage payments. Despite both working at the time, my father at an insurance company and my mother now full-time at the boutique, they'd prioritized vacations and renovations over housing security. The outstanding balance with penalties and interest totaled nearly $14,000. We've tried everything, my father insisted, though bank records later showed no payment attempts for months. You're our only hope, Amber." The decision to take over their mortgage payments wasn't made lightly. At 27, I was building my own investment portfolio and saving for eventual property ownership. Assuming my parents' housing costs meant delaying my personal goals indefinitely. Still, the alternative, allowing my childhood home to be foreclosed and my parents potentially homeless, seemed unthinkable. I withdrew funds from my emergency savings and cleared the outstanding balance. The following day, I visited my parents' bank and arranged to have the monthly mortgage statements sent to my address. "This is temporary," I told my parents firmly, "just until you get back on your feet." That temporary arrangement stretched into years. The mortgage payment of $1,500 monthly was just the beginning. Soon, calls about overdue utility bills became routine. Property taxes went unpaid until threatening letters arrived. Home insurance lapsed without my knowledge until I received frantic calls about reinstating coverage. Within months, I established automatic payments for all their essential bills: mortgage, electricity, water insurance, property tax, internet, and both cell phones. The total approached $2,500 monthly, a significant portion of my income even after my most recent promotion. To manage this financial strain, I cut my own expenses dramatically. Vacations became staycations. Restaurant meals became rare treats. Designer clothes were replaced with outlet store finds. Despite these sacrifices, my parents' expectations continued to escalate. When their refrigerator stopped working, I received urgent texts with appliance store links to top-of-the-line models. When their car needed repairs, they somehow returned home with a newer model and an explanation that the difference in monthly payments isn't that much. These differences inevitably found their way into requests for additional financial help. Multiple attempts to discuss budgeting strategies met with resistance and offense. "We're not children," Amber, my father, would say dismissively. "We've been managing households since before you were born." When I gently pointed out evidence to the contrary, conversations devolved into accusations about my superior attitude and lack of respect. My mother perfected emotional manipulation tactics. Any financial discussion triggered tears and references to health concerns aggravated by stress. Questions about unnecessary purchases were countered with guilt trips about my comfortable lifestyle and how family should support each other without judgment. Each conversation left me emotionally drained and questioning my own boundaries. About a year into this arrangement, I met Ryan Thompson at a charity fundraiser. Successful, kind, and refreshingly straightforward, he quickly became an important part of my life. Unlike previous relationships that withered under my family obligations, Ryan offered support and perspective. After meeting my parents at several family gatherings, he carefully broached the subject during a quiet dinner at his apartment. "They seem to take your generosity for granted," he observed, refilling my wine glass. "Have you ever calculated exactly how much you're contributing to their lives?" The question caught me off guard. While I tracked the amounts meticulously, I'd never tallied the total impact. When I finally created a spreadsheet detailing 3 years of financial support, the figure shocked us both: over $90,000, not including countless smaller expenses and gifts. "That's a down payment on a beautiful home," Ryan noted gently. "Or a master's degree. Or an investment portfolio that could set you up for early retirement." His words carried no judgment, just concern about the one-sided nature of my family relationship. He noticed how my parents called primarily when they needed something, how family gatherings always occurred at their home with expectations that I would bring food and gifts, how conversations centered on their needs rather than my life. "I just worry they're taking advantage of your generosity," he said, holding my hand across the table, "and that you're sacrificing your future to maintain their lifestyle." I defended my parents, reflexively explaining their financial struggles and bad luck. Even as the words left my mouth, I recognized the inconsistencies in my own narrative. Their temporary rough patch had somehow stretched into decades. Their bad luck always coincided with impulsive decisions. Their struggles never prevented luxury purchases, only bill payments. Ryan didn't press the issue, but his observations planted seeds of doubt that grew steadily. I began noticing patterns I'd previously ignored: how my parents discussed upcoming purchases as certainties despite their financial dependence, how they spoke about my career achievements primarily in terms of increased earning potential, how family conversations skirted any mention of my financial contributions while emphasizing my siblings' smallest gestures of support. The question began forming in my mind, though I wasn't ready to face it directly: was I being used? The first Saturday of each month was reserved for family dinner at my parents' house. Or, more accurately, the house I paid for. This tradition had continued since my college days, though the dynamics had shifted dramatically. What once involved me helping my mother cook while discussing the week's events had evolved into me arriving early with groceries, preparing the entire meal, and cleaning up afterward while my parents entertained. Last April's dinner began like any other. I arrived at 4 o'clock arms, laden with shopping bags containing prime rib, fresh vegetables, artisanal bread, and an expensive bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon. My mother greeted me with a quick cheek kiss before returning to her television show, while my father remained in his recliner engrossed in a golf tournament. The house looked immaculate as always. My mother prided herself on interior decorating, and the living room featured new accent pillows and an elegant area rug I didn't recognize from my visit last month. In the dining room, I noticed a crystal decanter set that definitely hadn't been there before. These observations triggered a familiar twinge of frustration: more luxury purchases while I covered their essential expenses. As I unpacked groceries, my mother wandered into the kitchen to inspect my selections. "Oh, only one dessert option," she remarked, eyeing the cheesecake I'd brought. "Your father was hoping for that chocolate torte from the bakery on Walnut Street." I bit back a retort about how they were welcome to purchase additional desserts themselves. Instead, I smiled tightly and focused on preparing the meal. By the time the roast was in the oven and vegetables were chopped, my siblings had arrived. Ethan brought a 6-pack of beer, while Madison arrived empty-handed except for her designer handbag, another trait she shared with our mother. Conversation flowed easily among them as I worked in the kitchen, catching snippets about Madison's recent promotion and Ethan's vacation plans. Neither offered to help with dinner preparations, having grown accustomed to my role as provider. When I finally joined them in the living room, wiping my hands on a dish towel, my mother was animatedly describing an upcoming cruise. "We found an amazing deal on a 14-day Mediterranean package," she explained, showing Madison brochures on her tablet. "Barcelona, Nice, Rome, Athens, and Santorini. The suite has a private balcony and includes drink packages." I froze mid-step, processing this information. A luxury European cruise would cost thousands even with supposed deals. Meanwhile, I'd just paid their property insurance last week after receiving panicked calls about the lapsed coverage. That sounds expensive, I commented carefully, taking a seat beside Ethan. When did you book this? Last week, my father replied casually. The travel agent said we needed to lock in the rate. Don't worry. We got trip insurance this time. The this time referenced their canceled Caribbean cruise 3 years ago when my mother developed bronchitis days before departure. The non-refundable tickets had been booked on my credit card with promises of repayment that never materialized. How are you paying for this? The question escaped before I could filter it. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. My mother's expression hardened momentarily before softening into a practiced look of innocence. We've been saving a little each month. It's our 35th anniversary gift to ourselves. The mathematics didn't add up. My parents' combined income barely covered their personal expenses after I handled the major bills. Any significant savings would have required months of disciplined budgeting, something I'd never witnessed from them. Dinner conversation remained strained despite my efforts to appear supportive. As we finished the main course, I excused myself to use the bathroom, needing a moment alone to process my feelings. The upstairs bathroom was being renovated, another expense I hadn't been informed about, so I headed toward the powder room off the kitchen. Passing through the hallway, I heard my parents' voices from the kitchen where they were preparing coffee. I paused instinctively, something in their hushed tones catching my attention. Do you think she suspects anything about the cruise money? My mother asked. My father's laugh carried a dismissive edge I'd never noticed before. Doubtful. Amber never questions where her money goes once it leaves her hands. Still, she seemed bothered about the trip. Maybe we should have waited to mention it until after she agreed to help with the kitchen renovation. She'll get over it. She always does. My father's voice dropped even lower, forcing me to strain to hear his next words. She's just a wallet to us at this point, not really family. As long as we play the guilt card, she'll keep paying our way. My mother's laughter felt like physical blows. True. Though I wish she'd do something about those extra pounds she's carrying. And that boyfriend of hers seems entirely too interested in our financial arrangements. He won't last, my father assured her. No man wants a woman who comes with her family's bills attached. She'll end up alone with those cats she loves so much, still paying our expenses. It's the perfect arrangement. The conversation shifted to coffee preferences, but I remained frozen in place, blood rushing in my ears. Their words replayed in an excruciating loop, confirming suspicions I'd buried beneath layers of familial obligation. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was an ATM with convenient access to funds, a resource to be manipulated and exploited. I don't know how long I stood there before footsteps approached. Quickly, I slipped into the powder room and locked the door, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My face appeared unchanged, though everything behind it had shattered. Splashing cold water on my cheeks, I practiced the smile I would need to finish this evening. When I returned to the dining room, my siblings had started dessert without me. The conversation had shifted to my father's golf game and plans for upgrading his clubs. There you are, my mother exclaimed. We were about to send a search party. Your cheesecake is actually quite good. The backhanded compliment barely registered. I took my seat mechanically, watching them through new eyes. Madison was showing off her expensive new watch, a purchase that seemed impossible on her entry-level marketing salary. Had my family support been redistributed among them, Ethan mentioned problems with his landlord with pointed looks in my direction that I'd previously interpreted as requests for advice, not financial assistance. Throughout dessert, I noticed their casual references to my career success always circled back to money. My recent promotion meant even more security for everyone, according to my father. My mother inquired about my firm's profit-sharing program with unusual interest. Neither asked about my actual work, my goals, or my happiness. The remainder of the evening passed in a blur. I feigned a work emergency around 9, claiming an important client needed immediate assistance. The concern on their faces wasn't for my work stress, but for the potential impact on my income. My mother's parting words hammered the final nail in the coffin of our relationship, as I'd understood it. Don't work too hard, sweetie, she said, hugging me briefly. Remember, family comes first. We're counting on you. The irony was suffocating. Driving home that night, I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Traffic lights blurred through unshed tears as my parents' words played on endless repeat. Just a wallet to us at this point, not really family. Each repetition peeled away another layer of denial I'd built around our relationship. Ryan was waiting at my apartment, having texted earlier about dropping off a book he'd recommended. One look at my face told him something was seriously wrong. I collapsed into his arms in the entryway, finally allowing the tears and rage to surface. They never loved me, I choked out between sobs. I was never their daughter, just their personal bank. Between broken sentences and tissues, I recounted what I'd overheard. Ryan listened without interruption, his expression darkening as the full picture emerged. Unlike previous conversations where he'd been careful with his opinions about my family, tonight he made no attempt to soften his response. This is financial abuse, Amber. Plain and simple. His voice was gentle but firm. They've been exploiting you for years. That first night's sleep proved impossible. I paced my apartment until dawn, examining memories through this devastating new lens. Birthday gifts I'd interpreted as thoughtful, a monogrammed briefcase, an expensive planner, now seemed calculated to benefit their investment in my career. Family vacations where I'd coincidentally covered most expenses. Health scares that mysteriously resolved once bills were paid. The pattern was unmistakable and stretched back to my childhood. The following week passed in a fog of emotional turmoil and distraction. At work, I struggled to focus during client meetings, my thoughts repeatedly drifting to financial calculations. Exactly how much had I given my parents over the years? My normally meticulous reports required multiple revisions as colleagues exchanged concerned glances. By Wednesday, my department head suggested I take personal days, noting uncharacteristic errors in my presentations. Instead of going home, I scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Jessica Mills, a therapist I'd seen sporadically for stress management. In her calm office with its soft lighting and comfortable chairs, I unloaded the entire story without editing. Dr. Mills listened attentively, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but mostly allowing my narrative to unfold naturally. What you're describing follows classic patterns of financial exploitation within families, she explained, when I finally fell silent. The constant emergencies, escalating expectations, emotional manipulation when boundaries are suggested, these are established tactics. But they're my parents, I countered weakly. Family is supposed to help family. Support should be reciprocal and respectful, she replied. Healthy family relationships involve give and take appreciation for assistance and fundamental respect for each other's well-being. From what you've described, they view you primarily as a resource, not as a person with your own needs and future. Over the next 2 hours, Dr. Mills helped me identify long-standing patterns of emotional manipulation beyond the financial exploitation. The guilt trips whenever I pursued independent interests, the subtle undermining of my relationships to maintain their priority position, the oscillation between lavish praise and crushing criticism designed to keep me off balance and seeking approval. What happens now? I asked as our extended session concluded. I can't just cut them off completely, can I? That's entirely your decision, she responded. But before making any moves, I'd suggest taking time to process your feelings and consider your options carefully. Financial entanglements can be complex and emotional ones even more so. That evening, I began researching family financial abuse, finding countless stories disturbingly similar to mine. Adult children supporting capable parents while sacrificing their own security. The distinctive patterns of guilt, obligation, and manipulation. The devastating emotional impact of discovering one's place in the family hierarchy. One article particularly resonated: financial exploitation within families breaking the cycle. The author described how financial abusers rarely change without significant consequences, how attempts at gradual boundary setting typically result in escalated manipulation tactics, and how clean breaks often prove most effective for both parties long-term. The exploited family member must recognize that their financial support enables dysfunctional behavior, the article stated. Withdrawing support, while emotionally difficult, creates necessary opportunity for the exploiters to develop responsibility and the exploited to reclaim their lives. By Saturday morning, anger had largely replaced my initial hurt. Years of sacrificed opportunities, delayed goals, and financial strain took clear shape in my mind. The dreams I'd abandoned, graduate school, international travel, home ownership, had been traded for my parents' unearned comfort and luxury. The realization fueled a determination I hadn't felt in years. Rather than confronting my parents immediately, I decided to approach the situation strategically. They had manipulated me for decades. An emotional confrontation would play directly into their established control tactics. Instead, I needed careful planning with both financial and emotional considerations in mind. Dr. Mills supported this approach during our follow-up session. Confrontations with long-term manipulators rarely produce the validation or closure people hope for, she advised. Focus instead on the concrete steps needed to disentangle yourself and establish healthy boundaries. With this guidance, I began developing a comprehensive exit strategy from my parents' financial life. The mortgage represented the largest entanglement, but numerous smaller connections needed, addressing utility accounts in my name, shared insurance, policies, cell phone plans, streaming services, and more. Each connection represented another opportunity for guilt manipulation and financial drain. The path forward wasn't about revenge, I realized. It was about reclaiming my independence and forcing my parents to face adult responsibilities they'd long avoided at my expense. It would require strength, planning, and unwavering resolve in the face of inevitable emotional warfare. I opened a new document on my laptop and titled it Financial Independence Plan. The journey to freedom had begun. Recognizing the complexity of my financial entanglements with my parents, I approached the situation methodically, beginning with a comprehensive assessment. Monday morning, I scheduled a lunch meeting with Trevor Martinez, a colleague specializing in family financial planning. While I kept personal details vague, I outlined my situation as helping family members transition to financial independence. The key is systematic documentation and clear communication, Trevor advised, over sandwiches in the firm's conference room. Begin by cataloging every financial connection. Recurring payments accounts in your name joint holdings, everything. That evening, I created spreadsheets tracking my parents' support history. The results proved staggering. Beyond the mortgage, $1,500 monthly for 5 years, I'd covered property taxes, $6,200 annually insurance, $2,400 annually utilities, averaging $380, monthly cell phones, $180, monthly streaming services, $65, monthly and countless emergency expenses. Conservative calculations placed my total contribution above $150,000 over 5 years, not including gifts, meals, and other unreimbursed expenses. Next, I consulted Sarah Rodriguez, an attorney specializing in family law. Her downtown office, with its leather chairs and credentials displayed on mahogany walls, provided a professional environment for this difficult conversation. You have no legal obligation to continue supporting capable adult parents, she confirmed after reviewing my situation. Since there's no written contract regarding the mortgage or other expenses, these are legally considered gifts, not loans. Could they claim some right to continued support based on established pattern, I asked, picturing my father's potential arguments. Unlikely to succeed in court, Sarah replied. However, you should verify that all accounts and services are properly registered. If your name appears on the mortgage or deed, for instance, you have responsibilities regardless of who benefits from the property. Research into the mortgage revealed my name appeared nowhere on official documents. My parents had simply routed the payment through my bank account while maintaining sole ownership. This arrangement, while disappointing, simplified my exit strategy considerably. The house remained legally theirs, along with all responsibilities for its maintenance and payment. Utility accounts required more attention. Several services had been established in my name when my parents faced credit issues years ago. I compiled necessary documentation to transfer these accounts back to them, including prepared authorization forms requiring only their signatures. With legal considerations addressed, I developed a 3-phase plan for withdrawing support. Phase 1 involved immediate cessation of extra financial assistance. No more emergency funds, gift cards, or shopping trips. Any new requests would receive firm but simple refusals. Phase 2 would transfer responsibility for smaller recurring expenses, utilities, streaming services, cell phones, and subscription services. Each account would transition to their control with clear timelines and formal notification. Phase 3, the most significant, would address the mortgage. Rather than an immediate cutoff, I planned a 3-month transition period with gradually reducing contributions. Month 1, full payment. Month 2, half payment. Month 3, final quarter payment. Month 4, complete withdrawal. This graduated approach would provide reasonable time for my parents to adjust their budget, increase work hours, or make necessary lifestyle changes. The timeline struck a balance between compassion and necessary firmness. Anticipating emotional manipulation tactics, I established a separate emergency fund for my siblings. Though Madison and Ethan had participated in my parents' exploitation to varying degrees, I didn't wish financial hardship upon them should they become collateral damage in the coming confrontation. This fund would remain untouched unless genuine emergencies arose with strict conditions preventing its use for our parents. The most challenging aspect of planning involved preparing for the actual confrontation. After consulting Dr. Mills, I decided a direct in-person approach would prove most effective. A detailed letter would accompany the conversation, providing written documentation of my decision and transition timeline. The letter required multiple drafts, each version balancing clarity with compassion. The final version began. After careful consideration of our financial relationship, I've made the difficult decision to end my financial support. This choice comes from a place of necessary self-care and the recognition that our current arrangement has become unhealthy for everyone involved. The following timeline outlines how this transition will occur. To prepare for predictable manipulation tactics, Ryan helped me role-play potential scenarios. He proved uncomfortably convincing as my father cycling through anger. After everything we've done for you, guilt, we'll lose everything health concerns. Your mother's blood pressure can't take this stress and appeals to family obligation. No decent child abandons their parents. Each practice session strengthened my resolve and refined my responses. I developed a repertoire of calm, firm statements. I understand you're upset, but my decision is final. I've provided a reasonable transition period. I'm happy to discuss budget strategies during this adjustment. This isn't about lack of love, but creating healthy boundaries. Meanwhile, I gathered comprehensive records of my financial contributions. Bank statements canceled, checks, transfer records, and payment confirmations filled a 3-inch binder. While I hoped this evidence wouldn't prove necessary, previous confrontations suggested my parents might deny or minimize my support history. Trevor recommended additional security measures including password changes for all financial accounts, credit monitoring services, and formal notifications to financial institutions about potential unauthorized access attempts. Financial manipulation often escalates when initial tactics fail, he warned. Better to secure everything proactively. I updated my contact information with all service providers, removing my parents as authorized contacts and establishing verbal passwords for account access. My mailbox key found a new hiding place and important documents moved to a safe deposit box. Each precaution addressed potential avenues for manipulation or retaliation. Technology required similar attention. I changed email passwords, updated security questions to information my parents wouldn't know, and established 2-factor authentication on all accounts. My phone received new privacy settings and contact blocks for extended family members likely to become flying monkeys in the coming conflict. During a second therapy session with Dr. Mills, we focused extensively on managing guilt, my parents' most powerful weapon. Guilt is effective only when you accept the premise that you're doing something wrong, she explained. Challenge that premise directly. Are you harming them by expecting adult responsibility? Or are you helping them by ending an unhealthy dynamic? This reframing proved powerful. Each time guilt surfaced during planning, I consciously redirected my thoughts. I'm not abandoning them. I'm requiring the adult independence they should have maintained all along. I expanded my support network beyond Ryan and Dr. Mills, confiding in trusted friends Julia and Marcus about the situation. Both expressed unsurprised support, revealing they'd harbored concerns about my family dynamic for years but hesitated to interfere. Their outside perspective reinforced my decision and provided additional emotional reinforcement for the difficult conversation ahead. You've carried them long enough, Julia said during our coffee meeting. It's time they stood on their own feet. Marcus was even more direct. They've been taking advantage of your good heart for decades. Anyone who truly loves you would want your financial security, not sacrifice it for their comfort. The final preparation step involved creating a comprehensive script for the confrontation itself. Unlike my usual improvisational approach to difficult conversations, this situation required careful planning to avoid emotional derailment. I outlined key points to address practiced transitional phrases for redirecting manipulation attempts and established clear boundaries for the discussion's scope and duration. By Thursday evening, 2 weeks after the devastating dinner, my plan was complete. Documents organized, accounts, secured support network, briefed, and emotional preparations finalized. Despite exhaustive planning, last-minute doubts crept in as I reviewed the final checklist. Was I overreacting to one overheard conversation? Could I damage family relationships beyond repair? Would this decision haunt me later in life? Dr. Mills had anticipated these 11th-hour questions. Second-guessing is normal when challenging long-established family dynamics, she'd explained during our most recent session. Return to the evidence and your core values when doubt surfaces. Following her advice, I reviewed the financial documentation once more. The numbers didn't lie. Years of one-sided sacrifice while my parents enjoyed luxuries beyond their earned means. More importantly, I revisited their unguarded words that revealed their true perception of me, just a wallet-perfect arrangement predictions of my loneliness while still paying our expenses. By midnight, resolve had replaced doubt. The confrontation would proceed as planned that weekend. After decades of financial servitude disguised as family obligation, I would finally reclaim my independence. Saturday morning dawned clear and unseasonably warm for April. I'd selected this day deliberately. My parents rarely made weekend plans, preferring to relax at home with the premium cable package I funded. Arriving unannounced would prevent them from preparing counterarguments or recruiting allies for emotional support. I dressed carefully in a charcoal gray pantsuit that projected professional confidence rather than family casualness. The outfit provided psychological armor, reminding me this conversation was a business transaction, not a plea for understanding. My leather portfolio contained copies of all relevant documents, while the originals remained safely at home. Ryan offered to accompany me, but I declined. I need to handle this independently, I explained while gathering my keys. Their manipulation tactics work partly because I've always had an audience. I'm proud of you, he said, embracing me before I left. Remember, you deserve financial freedom and healthy relationships. Those aren't mutually exclusive. The 20-minute drive to my parents' house passed quickly. Unusually, I felt calm rather than anxious, perhaps, because every possible outcome had been anticipated and prepared for. As expected, both cars sat in the driveway. My father's luxury sedan and my mother's crossover SUV, both less than 3 years old. I parked at the curb rather than the driveway, a small but significant break from tradition that signaled this wasn't a typical visit. Taking one final deep breath, I approached the front door and rang the bell instead of using my key. Another deliberate deviation from established patterns. My father answered, surprise evident in his expression. "Amber, we weren't expecting you today." He glanced at my formal attire and serious expression, confusion replacing his initial smile. "Is everything okay?" "We need to talk," I replied, simply stepping past him into the foyer. "Is Mom here too?" "In the sunroom with her magazines." His tone turned suspicious. "What's this about?" "Family finances. I'd like to speak with both of you together." He led me through the house without further questions, though his furrowed brow suggested mounting concern. The sunroom, a recent addition I'd unknowingly financed through emergency fund requests, was filled with wicker furniture and potted plants. My mother reclined on a chaise lounge, reading glasses perched on her nose as she flipped through a travel magazine. "Amber's here," my father announced, voice carefully neutral. "She wants to discuss something with us." My mother's surprise mirrored my father's, though she quickly recovered with practiced warmth. "Sweetie, what a lovely surprise. Is everything all right? You never visit without calling first." "I need to have an important conversation with you both," I stated, remaining standing despite my mother's gesture toward a nearby chair. "Before we begin, I'd like to include Ethan and Madison via video call for transparency." This request clearly unnerved them. My parents exchanged quick glances before my father cleared his throat. "Is that really necessary? Family financial matters should stay private." "I insist," I replied firmly. "This affects all of us, and I want everyone to hear the same information simultaneously." After uncomfortable silence, my mother nodded reluctantly. "If it's that important to you," I set up my tablet on the coffee table, positioning it to capture all three of us in frame. Both siblings answered promptly, their weekend plans interrupted by the unexpected family call. Madison appeared in workout clothes while Ethan's rumpled hair suggested he'd been sleeping late. "What's going on?" Madison asked, adjusting her camera. "Is everything okay?" I've called this meeting to discuss an important decision regarding our family's financial arrangement. I began maintaining professional composure. Specifically, my ongoing financial support to mom and dad, which has continued for the past 5 years. My father interrupted immediately, chuckling nervously for our siblings' benefit. Amber's being dramatic. She helps out occasionally with a bill here and there, nothing substantial. Rather than arguing, I removed the first document from my portfolio, a comprehensive summary of my financial contributions over 5 years. I've been paying the mortgage on this house in full since 2018. Additionally, I cover property taxes, home insurance, utilities, cell phones, and numerous emergency expenses. That can't be right, Madison interjected, frowning. Mom and Dad said they were handling all their expenses except for occasional help from you during tight months. The documentation is quite clear. I continued, holding up the summary sheet to the camera. I'll email copies to both of you after our conversation. The total contribution exceeds $150,000 over 5 years. My mother's expression had transformed from warmth to calculation. Why are you doing this, Amber? Bringing up private matters in front of your siblings, treating family support like some kind of business transaction. I'm doing this because I recently discovered how you truly view my role in this family. I maintained steady eye contact with both parents. Last Saturday during dinner, I overheard your conversation in the kitchen when you thought I was in the bathroom. Their faces registered immediate recognition, followed by poorly concealed alarm. My father attempted to interrupt, but I continued firmly. You said, and I quote, "She's just a wallet to us at this point, not really family." You discussed manipulating me through guilt, joked about my weight and relationship, and expressed confidence that I would continue paying your expenses indefinitely while receiving nothing in return. Through the tablet screen, I saw both siblings' shocked expressions. Madison covered her mouth while Ethan's brow furrowed deeply. You completely misunderstood, my mother interjected quickly. You must have heard something out of context. We would never say such things about you. Rather than arguing, I removed my phone and played the recording I'd secretly made after returning to my parents' house the following day. Their voices emerged clearly from the speaker, repeating the devastating conversation word for word, including additional comments about my gullibility and how they'd diverted funds meant for house repairs to their upcoming cruise. The recording left absolute silence in its wake. My father's face had flushed deep red while my mother's complexion turned ashen. On screen, Madison appeared stunned while Ethan closed his eyes, briefly jaw-clenched. You recorded us, my father finally sputtered, anger replacing shock. In our own home, that's probably illegal. Actually, Pennsylvania law permits recording conversations if one party consents, which I did, I replied, having researched this point specifically. But the legality is secondary to what the recording reveals about how you view me and my contributions to this family. My mother shifted tactics, immediately tears filling her eyes. Amber, sweetie, you're taking this all wrong. Sometimes parents say silly things they don't mean. We love you more than anything. This isn't about love, I continued, removing another document from my portfolio. This is about financial exploitation that ends today. I've prepared a detailed letter outlining my decision to terminate all financial support effective immediately. After all we've done for you, my father exploded, standing abruptly. We raised you, educated you, sacrificed everything for your future. This is how you repay us. I remained steady, having anticipated this exact response during role-playing sessions. I've compiled comprehensive financial records documenting my contributions since childhood. I placed the 3-inch binder on the coffee table between us. Including my part-time job earnings you took during high school, college expenses I covered while working multiple jobs, and the complete history of my adult support. You can't just abandon us, my mother wailed, tears now streaming freely. We'll lose everything. The house, our cars, everything we've worked for. You're both employed with combined income exceeding $70,000 annually, I countered calmly. Most American families live comfortably on less while paying their own expenses. I've included a proposed household budget based on your actual income that allows for all necessities and reasonable comforts. My father changed tactics, voice lowering ominously. If you do this, you're no longer part of this family. Is that what you want? To be alone in the world without parents or siblings? On screen, Ethan interrupted. Don't drag us into this, Dad. I'm pretty shocked by what I just heard on that recording. Madison nodded slowly. Me too. I had no idea Amber was paying for everything. You told me she just helped with the mortgage refinance a few years ago. My father ignored them, focusing his glare on me. Your mother has high blood pressure. If something happens to her because of this stress, that's on your conscience forever. I've anticipated potential health concerns, I replied, refusing to be manipulated. The transition plan includes 3 months of graduated support reduction rather than immediate termination. That provides ample time to adjust your budget, increase work hours if necessary, or downsize to more affordable housing. I placed the formal letter on the table between us. This document outlines the complete transition plan, including specific dates for service transfers and payment reductions. I've provided my attorney's contact information for any legitimate questions after today's conversation. My mother grabbed the letter, scanning it frantically. 3 months, that's impossible. We have commitments, plans, obligations. Such as your Mediterranean cruise, I asked quietly. Or the kitchen renovation you plan to ask me to fund next month. Her expression confirmed both assumptions. My father snatched the letter from her hands, tearing it in half with theatrical flourish. We refuse to accept this. You have a responsibility to your family. I removed another copy from my portfolio, placing it on the table. I anticipated that reaction. This is your copy to keep. I have the original and digital versions have been sent to my attorney, therapist, and financial advisor. You involved outsiders in private family matters. My father's voice rose dangerously. How dare you air our dirty laundry? I involved professionals to help me manage a difficult transition, I corrected. Just as I've involved Ethan and Madison today to ensure complete transparency. On screen, both siblings remained uncharacteristically silent, processing the unfolding scene. My mother had abandoned tears for cold fury, recognizing their ineffectiveness. You'll regret this, she stated flatly. When you're old and alone with no one to care for you, you'll remember this moment and wish you'd made different choices. I'm not abandoning you, I replied, gathering my documents. I'm establishing healthy boundaries after years of exploitation. I remain open to rebuilding our relationship on equal, respectful terms once the financial entanglement ends. My father laughed bitterly. Relationship? What relationship could possibly exist without your financial support? That's all you've ever been good for. His words, though intended to wound, instead confirmed the absolute necessity of my decision. On screen, Madison gasped audibly while Ethan shook his head in disgust. That's exactly why this needs to happen, I said quietly, closing my portfolio. Because you can't see me as anything but a financial resource. Perhaps once that's gone, you might recognize the daughter you've always had. Standing, I addressed my siblings directly. I've established emergency funds for both of you should legitimate needs arise. Those remain available regardless of what happens between me and our parents. We can discuss details privately later. My mother made one final attempt, voice trembling. Please, Amber, if you ever loved us, you'll reconsider this cruel decision. This isn't about love, I replied, heading toward the door. It's about respect, boundaries, and basic human dignity. Things that have been missing from our relationship for far too long. My father's parting words followed me down the hallway. You'll be back when guilt catches up with you. Family obligation always wins in the end. At the front door, I turned back briefly. The first mortgage payment you'll be responsible for is due May 15th. I suggest using the cruise deposit refund toward it. With those words, I walked out, closing the door firmly behind me. In my car, I sat momentarily overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. Grief for the loving family I'd never truly had relief. At finally confronting the truth and unexpected lightness from setting down a burden carried far too long. As I started the engine, my phone buzzed with text messages from both siblings requesting private conversations later. Whatever happened next, the wall of secrecy had been irreparably broken. The truth, with all its painful clarity, now stood in the open for all to see. The aftermath began before I reached home. My phone exploded with notifications, 12 missed calls and 23 text messages from my parents within 30 minutes of leaving their house. Their messages cycled predictably through the emotional manipulation tactics I'd anticipated. Guilt. How could you do this to your own parents? Anger. You're dead to us now. Health concerns. Your mother's in tears with chest pains and bargaining. Let's discuss a compromise. Following my prepared plan, I didn't respond to any messages, instead forwarding them to a dedicated email folder for documentation. By evening, the barrage expanded to include extended family members. My mother's sister calling to express deep concern about family division. My father's brother texting about supporting the people who raised you, and various cousins weighing in without understanding the complete situation. Ryan provided calm support as we reviewed the growing communication storm. "They're following the manipulation playbook perfectly," he observed, preparing dinner while I documented each contact attempt. First, direct pressure, then recruiting flying monkeys when that fails. My siblings maintained surprising neutrality during the initial fallout. Ethan called that evening, his usual jovial tone replaced by subdued thoughtfulness. "I had no idea how much you were supporting them," he admitted. "They always described your help as occasional assistance, not their entire lifestyle." Madison's perspective proved more complex. During our Sunday coffee meeting, she oscillated between shock at our parents' recorded comments and concern about their future. "What they said was horrible," she acknowledged, stirring her latte absently. "But they're still our parents. What happens if they actually lose the house?" "They won't if they adjust their spending to match their actual income," I explained, showing her the budget I'd prepared. "They earn enough to cover essentials if they prioritize needs over wants." Both siblings initially supported my decision while maintaining their own relationships with our parents. This middle ground position lasted approximately 2 weeks before the pressure intensified. My parents, recognizing direct manipulation had failed, redirected their efforts through my more vulnerable siblings. Ethan called late one Tuesday, his voice tight with discomfort. "Mom's been crying for days. Dad says they're meeting with the bank about foreclosure options. They're saying you've abandoned them without warning after all they did raising us." "That's factually incorrect," I replied calmly. "The transition plan provides 3 months of graduated support, and the detailed letter outlines budget adjustments that would prevent foreclosure. Have they made any effort to implement those suggestions?" His hesitation provided the answer. "I don't think so. They're focused on changing your mind instead of changing their spending." Madison proved more susceptible to their influence. Our previously scheduled shopping trip was dominated by her relaying increasingly dramatic accounts of our parents' suffering. Their sleepless nights, inability to eat, and constant anxiety about the future. When subtle guilt tactics failed, she switched to direct requests. "They just need a little more time," she pleaded as we browsed a department store. "Maybe you could extend the transition period to 6 months instead of 3. Or continue paying just the mortgage until they figure things out. Any extension reinforces their belief that manipulation works," I explained gently. "The only way forward is for them to accept financial responsibility for their choices." By the 3rd week, my parents missed their first mortgage payment despite my contribution covering half the amount due. As expected, the bank called me rather than them having my contact information from years of payments. "I'm no longer responsible for that account," I explained to the confused representative. "The homeowners are Robert and Diana Wilson. All correspondence should go directly to them." This missed payment triggered the next phase of manipulation. My parents drove to my office building unannounced, creating a scene in the lobby when reception refused access without an appointment. Security eventually escorted them out, but not before they distributed printed photos of our family to bewildered colleagues, claiming their daughter had abandoned them in their time of need. The professional embarrassment proved difficult but manageable. My department head, having witnessed similar family financial entanglements with other clients, offered unexpected support. "Financial boundaries often trigger dramatic resistance," she noted during our private meeting after the incident. "It usually indicates you're doing exactly what's necessary." Less manageable was the expanding social fallout. My mother launched what I came to call her sympathy campaign across social media platforms. Without directly naming me, she posted tearful updates about family betrayal and children forgetting their roots. Distant relatives and family friends, seeing only her carefully crafted narrative, reached out with well-meaning but uninformed concern about my abandonment issues and selfish choices. The most alarming escalation came from an anonymous account sending screenshots of my parents' mortgage statements to my company's general email, copying several partners and suggesting I was financially abusing elderly parents. HR immediately recognized this as harassment, but advised documenting all communication for potential legal action if necessary. My parents' discovery and contact of Ryan's family marked another boundary violation. His parents thankfully recognized manipulation tactics from dealing with similar relatives in their own lives. They called us claiming concern about your undue influence over their daughter, Ryan's mother, reported during dinner at their home. We told them we fully support healthy financial boundaries. The continuous pressure took an inevitable emotional toll despite my preparations. Some nights I lay awake questioning my decision, wondering if accommodating their demands might prove easier than weathering this relentless storm. During these moments, Dr. Mill's guidance provided essential perspective. What you're experiencing is the extinction burst, she explained, during our weekly session. When long-established manipulation tactics stop working, the manipulators intensify their efforts dramatically before eventually accepting the new reality. Your parents are pulling out all stops because they recognize they're losing control. This framework helped me contextualize each new escalation. The health emergency that mysteriously resolved without medical intervention. The threats of family excommunication. The family meeting organized without my knowledge where they presented a one-sided version of events. Each represented desperate attempts to regain control rather than legitimate reasons to reconsider my decision. By the 6-week mark, escalating harassment necessitated legal intervention. After my parents arrived, unannounced at my apartment building, 3 consecutive evenings, my attorney filed for a temporary restraining order, citing harassment and emotional distress. The court granted the order despite my mother's tearful protests about just trying to speak with my daughter. The first holiday without family contact, Memorial Day weekend, proved unexpectedly liberating rather than lonely. Instead of the traditional obligation-filled family barbecue, Ryan and I joined friends for a relaxed lakeside gathering. The absence of underlying tension and financial expectations allowed genuine enjoyment I hadn't experienced during family events in years. Throughout June, bank notifications confirmed my parents' house had entered early foreclosure proceedings after 3 consecutive missed payments. Despite my continued partial contributions according to the transition plan, rather than implementing budgeting suggestions or considering downsizing options, they'd apparently maintained their previous lifestyle while expecting external intervention to save them from consequences. Their final manipulation attempt arrived in late June, a registered letter containing a carefully worded public apology and request for reconciliation. The timing coincided suspiciously with the final mortgage contribution scheduled in my transition plan, suggesting financial motivation rather than genuine remorse. The letter acknowledged misunderstandings and unfortunate comments while avoiding direct responsibility for years of exploitation. More telling, it included no recognition of my financial contributions or their unsustainable expectations. Instead, it emphasized their role as parents and my natural obligation to family while proposing a fresh financial arrangement involving continued mortgage payments with more appreciation expressed. After consulting Dr. Mills, I responded with a brief, clear message. I remain open to rebuilding our relationship based on mutual respect and appropriate boundaries. This would need to begin with acknowledgement of past patterns and commitment to interaction without financial expectations. I'm available for family counseling if you're interested in this approach. No response followed, confirming my suspicion that reconciliation without financial benefit held little interest for them. As June ended, the transition plan concluded with my final quarter payment contribution to their mortgage. Whatever happened next would reflect their choices rather than my support. The unexpected epilogue to this phase came through Madison, who called after visiting our parents' home in early July. The house is full of brand new purchases, she reported, confusion evident in her voice. A large screen TV, new furniture, even kitchen renovations underway. When I asked how they were affording everything while missing mortgage payments, Dad just said, "Things have worked out," without explanation. The mystery resolved days later when Ethan discovered our parents had taken a reverse mortgage on the house, using the equity I'd built through years of payments to fund their continued lifestyle without addressing underlying financial issues. The short-term solution would inevitably lead to long-term problems, but the pattern of prioritizing immediate gratification over future security remained unchanged. This development, while disappointing, confirmed the absolute necessity of my withdrawal. Without natural consequences for their choices, no behavioral change could occur. By removing my financial support, I'd finally allowed reality to provide the lessons I'd been unable to deliver through years of attempted guidance. By mid-July, the initial storm had largely subsided. My parents' communication attempts dwindled as the financial reality settled in. Extended family members witnessing the situation's complexity largely retreated from their initial judgment. My siblings maintained relationships with all parties but respected my boundaries regarding financial discussions. Throughout this challenging period, unexpected growth emerged from the conflict's fertile ground. Colleagues praised my professionalism during family harassment at work. Friends expressed admiration for maintaining boundaries despite intense pressure. Most importantly, I developed internal strength previously buried beneath layers of guilt and obligation. As summer progressed, the emotional weight I'd carried for decades gradually lifted. Each mortgage-free month represented another step toward financial independence and personal freedom. The future once mortgaged to my parents' expectations now opened with possibilities limited only by my own choices and priorities. 6 months after the confrontation that changed everything, I sat on my apartment balcony watching autumn leaves drift from nearby trees. The journey from financial exploitation to independence had transformed not just my bank account but my entire perspective on family obligation and self-worth. The practical changes appeared most obvious. Without supporting my parents' mortgage and expenses, my financial situation improved dramatically. The redirected funds now strengthened my retirement accounts, built a healthy emergency fund, and even allowed planning for a down payment on my own home. Small luxuries previously sacrificed to family obligations, weekend getaways, occasional restaurant meals, professional development courses, returned to my life without accompanying guilt. Less visible but more significant were the emotional changes. The constant background anxiety about potential financial emergencies had disappeared, replaced by calm confidence in my boundaries. Sleep came easier without midnight calls about unpaid bills. Workdays passed without distraction from family crises, requiring immediate resolution. The persistent guilt that had shadowed every personal purchase or plan gradually faded as therapy helped reframe my understanding of family responsibility. My relationship with Ryan deepened amid this transformation. Having witnessed both my struggle and strength, he proposed during a sunset hike in early autumn. The vintage emerald ring he offered symbolized new beginnings rather than traditional expectations. Our wedding plans emphasized meaningful celebration over financial display, with savings directed toward our shared future rather than others' approval. My siblings and I established healthier adult relationships without our parents' manipulative influence. Ethan and I met monthly for dinner, discussing our lives as equals rather than through family hierarchy. Madison initially maintained closer ties with our parents but gradually recognized manipulation patterns affecting her own financial choices. By autumn, she had established her own boundaries, refusing parental requests for loans and gifts beyond her means. My parents' situation evolved along predictable lines. Unable to maintain their previous lifestyle without my support, they eventually downsized from the family home to a 2-bedroom apartment. The reverse mortgage had provided temporary relief but ultimately accelerated the inevitable reckoning with financial reality. Their smaller living space, while comfortable, lacked the luxury appointments and extra rooms they'd previously enjoyed at my expense. Our relationship remained severely limited for several months following the confrontation. Their initial resentment manifested as performative victimhood to extended family, community acquaintances, and anyone who might offer sympathy or support. Social media posts alternated between vague references to family heartbreak and carefully curated images of brave resilience despite abandonment. By late summer, this performance diminished as its ineffectiveness became apparent. Extended family, initially sympathetic, gradually recognized the pattern after witnessing similar manipulation attempts directed at them. Friends grew weary of one-sided narratives without context. Most importantly, the absence of financial reward removed motivation for sustained contact efforts. A tentative reconnection began in September through carefully structured public meetings. Coffee shops replaced private homes, removing the power dynamics of territorial advantage. Short, scheduled visits prevented emotional escalation or sustained manipulation attempts. Neutral conversation topics, current events, community happenings, general health updates, maintained surface pleasantries without venturing into triggering territory. Our first such meeting revealed telling changes in their approach. My father's customary dominance appeared muted without financial leverage to exploit. My mother's theatrical emotions remained, but found little purchase against my established boundaries. Most significantly, their relationship with me showed subtle recalibration. grudging respect, replacing entitled expectation as they encountered the adult daughter rather than the compliant ATM they'd previously known. Initial conversations remained strained and superficial. References to difficult times and misunderstandings substituted for genuine accountability. Attempts to discuss financial matters met firm redirection. "I'm here to rebuild our personal relationship, not financial entanglements." This boundary, consistently maintained, gradually shaped our interaction toward genuine, if limited, personal connection. Progress came through small realizations rather than dramatic breakthroughs. My father, faced with apartment maintenance issues, reluctantly developed basic repair skills previously delegated to service providers or me. My mother, working increased hours at the boutique, discovered unexpected satisfaction in professional accomplishment beyond social status. Their relationship with each other evolved as external financial resources disappeared, requiring communication and cooperation previously unnecessary, with my support smoothing all difficulties. Throughout this period, weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Mills provided essential perspective and support. "Family systems resist change," she explained during one particularly insightful discussion. "Your parents are experiencing the natural consequences of financial reality for the first time in decades. That discomfort, while painful for everyone involved, creates the only environment where genuine relationship recalibration becomes possible." My professional growth continued parallel to personal development. The financial boundaries established with family transferred beneficially to client relationships, allowing clearer guidance regarding unrealistic expectations or emotional decision-making. My department head noted improved performance reviews and client retention, attributing the change to increased confidence and clarity in challenging conversations. The experience inspired unexpected professional direction as well. In consultation with our firm's education department, I developed a workshop titled "Financial Boundaries in Family Systems," addressing the common but rarely discussed intersection of family dynamics and financial health. The initial presentation to colleagues received such positive response that expanded versions followed for client education events and eventually community financial literacy programs. This professional evolution extended to volunteer work with a local nonprofit focused on financial education for vulnerable populations. Saturday mornings found me teaching budgeting skills to participants, ranging from recent immigrants to domestic violence survivors rebuilding independent lives. Each session reinforced lessons from my own journey while transforming painful experience into community benefit. Personal financial education expanded beyond professional expertise as well. Weekly money dates with Ryan established transparency and shared planning absent from my family of origin. We discussed financial goals, values, and concerns, openly creating collaborative approaches to future challenges rather than unspoken expectations or obligations. This foundation strengthened our partnership beyond financial matters, establishing communication patterns benefiting all aspects of our relationship. The holiday season approached with inevitable questions about family gatherings. After careful consideration and consultation with Dr. Mills, I accepted a limited invitation for Thanksgiving dinner at Madison's apartment. Neutral territory with clear time boundaries and multiple participants to buffer potential conflict. The gathering proceeded with surprising civility conversation, remaining carefully within established safe topics. My parents' behavior during this event reflected significant, if incomplete, evolution. Their initial greeting acknowledged my engagement with appropriate congratulations rather than financial calculations. References to difficult times carried less martyrdom than previous communications. Most tellingly, my father's passing comment about their downsized apartment included acknowledgement that it's actually easier to manage on our budget, the closest approach to financial reality I'd witnessed from him in décades. As winter settled over the city, my parents began taking hesitant steps toward financial responsibility beyond immediate necessity. My mother mentioned attending a community college personal finance workshop, while my father consulted the financial advisor I'd recommended in my transition letter months earlier. These small measures, while late and limited, suggested potential capacity for growth previously obscured by enabled dependence. The most significant indicator of healing came unexpectedly during a December coffee meeting. As conversation paused naturally, my mother looked directly at me with unusual clarity. "I've been thinking about things," she began hesitantly. "About how we treated you over the years. It wasn't fair to put so much responsibility on you from such a young age. This acknowledgement, while limited, represented more accountability than she'd expressed in my entire adult life. My father, rather than interrupting or dismissing her, statement added awkwardly, "We got used to you handling everything. It became too easy to rely on you instead of figuring things out ourselves." The conversation that followed avoided both dramatic apologies and complete resolution. Years of established patterns couldn't dissolve in a single interaction. Yet this small opening toward accountability created possibility for genuine relationship where none had existed before. Not the parent-child relationship I'd longed for throughout childhood, but perhaps an adult connection based on reality rather than exploitation. As the new year approached, I reflected on the journey from financial captivity to independence. The path had proved more difficult, more painful, and ultimately more rewarding than anticipated. Freedom from financial exploitation had created space for authentic connections previously impossible beneath obligations' weight. Professional success found new dimension through personal experience transformed into service. Most importantly, self-worth previously defined by usefulness to others now stood independently rooted in intrinsic value rather than external validation. Family relationships continued evolving along this new path, neither completely severed nor fully restored but recalibrated toward healthier dynamics. Weekly therapy sessions transitioned to monthly maintenance as acute crisis resolved into ongoing personal growth. Financial independence strengthened rather than threatened by appropriate boundaries and expectations. The future, once mortgaged to others' demands, now opened with possibilities, limited only by my own choices and priorities. The wallet had become a woman again, whole and complete in herself, rather than valued for what she provided to others. The journey continued, but for the first time in decades, I walked the path on my own terms, free from financial chains disguised as family obligation. If you've experienced financial exploitation from family members, know you're not alone. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for everyone's well-being. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Has my story resonated with your experiences? What boundaries have you established in your relationships? Remember to like this video if it helped you, subscribe for more content about establishing healthy financial relationships, and share with anyone who might benefit from knowing they're not alone in these struggles. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage and strength in creating healthy boundaries in your own life.